Houston, hopefully you have a problem on 3. You are higher than a draft's ass crack with this latest ranking. Perhaps we would like to be that high up in the clouds as well, though, with a Big 12 championship schedule out. Maybe?
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at All Day O State. Today, we're brought to you by Game Time Tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Get with the Game Time Tickets today. Meanwhile, we shift into the conversation of Cowboy football, coming back to win a Big 12 title. At least that is where we're supposed to be with the new schedule out. It would be pretty crazy for us to put a shout that we're going to win a Big 12 title. So I'm not ready to go quite that far. And throughout the course of the season and spring and who makes rosters and who doesn't make rosters all across the Big 12 will help with some of that in the determining factors on who could potentially win a Big 12 title. But this is the conference that is, in fact, more bipolar than my ex-wife. Therefore, we don't know what's going to happen. You might as well take a dartboard, throw a dart with your eyes closed, and that'll be a pretty good guess on who's going to win the Big 12 championship. But what I will say is, for Oklahoma State, this schedule is somewhat beneficial because of the number of home games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 home games in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And we're looking to build anticipation for this season. We're trying to get more NIL dollar bills. And of course, spring game would go a long way in doing that. But another thing that could be marketed is the fact that we have 7 home games. So just a matter of getting your money's worth is typically going to happen whenever you have an exorbitant number of home games. 7 is classified, I would guess, as an exorbitant number because it's not typical, right? And coming off of the most lackluster season of my lifetime, more or less, this is very welcome news. Now, again, this is the wildest conference in the country at predicting who's going to win, who's going to do good. We really do not know from one Saturday to another. And just like we might have a general understanding of guys like Jalen Daniels coming back to KU and Retzlaff going back to BYU, some of those will obviously help with the determination on who's going to win the conference. But as the last couple of years have been any indication of, we really don't know. But if we're to take a shot in the dark before spring, before fall, before we actually roll into the season, just from the bird's eye view, looking at Oklahoma State's schedule, we start the season with UT Martin and Stillwater, America. Safe to say that should be a dub. Then we go on the road to Eugene, Oregon to take on the Ducks. Dan Lanning's likely going to have that team pretty stacked up. Obviously, after coming off of an undefeated regular season and a letdown in the playoffs, they're going to be looking to prove something here. And we're not going to know exactly what team we have week 2. So it's safe to say this is probably going to be a loss. So we start the season 1-1. Then we have Tulsa coming into Stillwater, America. Should be a W. Then you have Baylor coming into Stillwater, Oklahoma. Retribution, maybe. I think a lot of us are still hanging on to that 2021 6 inches short without Jalen Warren in the game style of fiasco. If any part of your soul left as an Oklahoma State fan, it probably left on the 6-inch line in the Big 12 title game. Plus, they do have to come to Stillwater, America. This has got to be a W against Baylor, who is likely going to be a pretty good team. Then you go on the road at Arizona. They do not have the best wide receiver in the country, definitely not the best wide receiver in the Big 12 anymore. What is Noah Fafita going to look like in this next year? Nobody really knows. So I'll say that should be a W. Then you've got Houston coming to Stillwater, America. I think they will be significantly improved, but if we're equally as improved, this should be a W, right? So you're talking about a win at UT Martin, win against Tulsa. Baylor could go 50-50, right? So, I mean, you could consider that a loss, but let's say there's a win at Houston. So now you're staring down the barrel of potentially being at a 5-1, 4-2 style of conversation before you get to homecoming. We do get the Cincinnati Bearcats at home in Stillwater, so I would like to consider that a W. Then we have Texas Tech on the road, October 25th. It's going to be late. They should be a factor in the Big 12 championship race. So I think it's safe to say that new Jones Stadium is going to be rocking there. You could consider that a loss. Going on the road to Lawrence, Kansas. Again, with some of the people they do have coming back, including Jalen Daniels, you might need to look at the backup situation to figure out what the real picture is going to look like for KU. But again, 30,000 feet view, that one could go either way. Kansas State on the road, probably a loss. In Stillwater, Oklahoma, like it is, that's another potential 50-50 style of game. At UCF, much like Baylor, we have some retribution. We definitely have to go back to the bounce house to take care of some business, because last time we went to the bounce house, we got bounced around pretty good after feeling very confident from beating OU and getting ourselves in prime position to make a Big 12 title run, which we did, in fact, make the run to the Big 12 championship game. We know how that went down. And then we end the season at home against Iowa State. Matt Campbell is one of the top tier coaches. Matt Campbell is likely going to have his team ready. Their top two wide receivers are gone, but they do return Rocco back to, and their running back, Abu Sama, I believe he is back as well. They got a very good wide receiver in the transfer portal that I think we'll all be paying attention to a little bit later on. But I think as it sits and as you look at this Oklahoma State schedule, we're doing a lot to try to build up. I think we could use the Oregon game to build some of this NIL. When it comes to the spring game, Chad Weiberg did put out a tweet the other day in regards to the spring game. Somebody said this would help a lot if there was a spring game, and all he said in response was, stay tuned, mark your calendars for April 19th. So people are clamoring for an actual spring game, and he is tweeting out that people need to show up on April 19th. It would be a lot easier if he would just come out and say it's going to be a full-on, real deal Holyfield spring game, but him dropping little breadcrumbs of everybody needs to show up April 19th, it might be enough just to kind of get the build up there for the anticipation for a spring game, of somewhat scrimmage, whatever you want to call it. Let's continue to build this thing up for the Oregon game. And if I were to, again, throw a shot in the dark at a record, the expectations in Stillwater are 9 to 10 wins every year. I feel like that's pretty fair. The acceptable line is typically 8 wins, right? Anything below 8 wins is traditionally viewed as a disappointment of a season. But after a 3-9 year in our first OFER conference campaign since 1994, 7-5 feels like a pretty decent re-beginning. The restoration of order. It's got to start somewhere. In this conference, we easily could go from worst to first, just like Arizona State did in this previous season. But I feel like 7-5 is safe without doing all of the research, just looking at the schedule in general. There's a few toss-up games in here. As the season progresses, obviously we'll know a lot more. But there's only a handful of, you would consider, losses. Who knows? We don't know what we're going to look like, but hopefully Chad Weiberg is not playing with our emotions, and we do get to see some of these bad mamma jammas that we've brought over in the transfer portal on the field in the spring game. We need it. This is what we're looking for. Chad Weiberg, please hear our roars. I know on my channel it's like a kitten roaring, but still, hear it out. And you, do not miss out on the opportunity to be a part of all 7 of the Oklahoma State home games coming up this season, or if you're ready to get squared away with Super Bowl 59. Ladies and gentlemen, Game Time Tickets is the bee's knees for all of your ticketing needs. And I understand that whenever you're trying to get the best bang for your buck, especially when it comes to tickets, it's important to be able to go outside of just football or sporting events, because they also help you get to comedy events, music, theater, whatever the case may be in your local area. Game Time is the best for you. Whatever the next big event is, Game Time Picks is going to make it easier for you to bring home the W. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates all of the best deals, so you don't have to waste thousands of minutes through thousands of tickets to try to make it make sense. You're going to be using the Game Time Picks because the curated deals make it super simple to find great tickets at a great price with no sifting through ridiculousness. If you're grabbing a super deal, you know it's the prime seat for anything because the value is absolutely phenomenal. The seat view is panoramic from the seat in the venue, so you don't get any hanky-panky of getting put in the wrong section by when the scalping style of service is. And the best part, you're covered Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal elsewhere, they'll refund your money 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with the easy cancellation option if something were to come up. Get ready to make your next big event even better with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create that account. Redeem that code, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Make sure that you go download Game Time today because it is the last-minute tickets, the lowest prices, guaranteed. Let's keep hopping along here to a publication that was put out by On3 Sports. Now, I must say, again, this particular individual is higher than a giraffe's ace crack. Mr. Ari Wasserman, perhaps you should find a better drug of choice because whatever you were on when you put this together is absolutely crazy. There is 6 Big 12 coaches on this list, and Mike Gundy's not one of them. And I'm not going to be, the flag bearer of the Mike Gundy Club. But even I can look at things objectively and understand that if you look at the totality of the last 2 decades of collegiate football, Mike Gundy is easily top 25. Mike Gundy is, to some degree, approaching top 50 best coaches in the history of college football. I, like you, likely think he needs a couple more titles in his bag to kind of make the most amount of sense. But to have him not on this list is absolute preposterous insanity, all tied into one. So here's what On3 Sports put out: top 25 coaches in America. Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisian, Marcus Freeman, Dabo Sweeney. I mean, I don't have a big argument in the top 6. Dabo might be a hair high, but that's probably pretty close. Deion Sanders at number 7. Sorry, love Deion. Think he's a beautiful addition to the Big 12, and he's something from marketability standpoint we're going to be able to utilize. But after one terrible season and one really good season, he catapults himself to the number 7 best coach in all of college football. It's absolutely insanity. Kyle Whittingham right behind him, number 8 in the country. I'm sorry, did I miss where Utah had a banger of a season last year? Because I'm pretty confident they had almost as equally of a train wreck of a season as we did. So what are we going off of here, right? Because if you're going off of historical connotations, then Mike Gundy should be ahead of Deion Sanders, somewhat right next to Kyle Whittingham. Kyle Whittingham has a very down year, especially for Utah standards, and he's up here without any merit. This doesn't make any sense. What is the justification here? Then you have Kalen DeBoer at number 9 and Josh Heupel rounding out the top 10. Okay, some of that I think can make some sense. Then you have Mario Cristobal, number 11 at Miami. Okay, maybe. Kurt Cignetti, after one phenomenal year at Indiana and getting their head bounced around in the playoff like a basketball, this is insanity. Kenny Dillingham, number 13 ranked best coach in America. I love the fact that he's 34. I love the fact that he's an ASU guy from the ASU area that grew up there. He's kind of like a Mike Gundy-esque level kind of bring up for them. I get it. I love it. I like it. But again, 2 years into coaching and one phenomenal season, one very lackluster season, and he catapults himself here to the top 13. Then you have number 14, Lance Leipold. Again, I think Lance Leipold is one of the top coaches in the Big 12, but what would be the justification here? You have a really good year. You put KU on the map to a level they haven't been on since 2007. Get it? I'm with it. And then you nosedive the very next season, much like Oklahoma State and Utah. Number 15, James Franklin. Number 16, Brian Kelly. Number 17, Lane Kiffin. 18, Brett Bielema. Brett Bielema and Mike Gundy are probably pretty close, reminiscent in records and things of that nature. Sharon Moore. What? Why? Because He got to be the interim backup coach over the sign gate stuff and won a few ball games, pretty close, I might add. And then he takes over, has a bad season by Michigan standards, but because they beat Ohio State, that's the one reason that he catapults into the top 20 of the best coaches in America. Miss me with the bull honky on 3. Then you have Kirk Ferentz, number 20. Don't have an argument there whatsoever. Matter of fact, you could argue that historically speaking, Kirk Ferentz could be significantly higher on this list. Then you have Bill Belichick. What? The dude has not coached a single millisecond of collegiate football, yet he's all of a sudden magically top 21. Is he likely one of the top 20 best coaches in college football? Yeah, probably. But we're not going to make him coach a single rep in a single millisecond of a minute of a game before we make this decision that he's automatically top 25 greatest college coaches out here. Come on now. Then you have stinking Lincoln Riley, number 22. Once again, for what? Because he has a quarterback that lost to Oklahoma State in Stillwater, America, win the Heisman, paint his fingernails, and then you go backwards the very next season. Where's the justification here? Offensively, yes, Lincoln Riley is still a phenomenal mind. But this doesn't say coordinators. I'm pretty sure this says top CFB coaches. That's precisely what it says. Followed by Brett Venables. Now I'm just going to look like a Bedlam hater for hating on this one, but I don't even think OU fans would side with this. I don't even think OU fans, the most diehard, Sooner bred, whatever the flip they call themselves, they're not even going to put Lincoln Riley next to Brett Venables. And they're dang sure not going to put Brett Venables or Lincoln Riley in the top 25 best coaches in college football. Then you have, rounding out the top 25, Kalani Sitake. Definitely agree with this one. He's had more than just a couple good years at BYU. And then Matt Campbell, when it comes to just being the constant and a guy that's turned down several big-time offers to stay in Ames, Iowa, I think it's pretty remarkable. I do agree that Matt Campbell is a top 25 coach. But again, over half of these coaches on this list should be and would be below Mike Gundy. Now, if you're going off of it like just the hottest coaches, okay, perhaps, but then what is the justification for putting Kyle Whittingham on here? There is none. If you're looking at the hottest coaches, then that should be in the title, but this says the best coaches in college football right now, not just last year. So if you're going to discount the fact that Mike Gundy isn't in the top 25, then you've got to get rid of a lot of these dudes. And if you're just going to do it on who is having the most exciting preseason, then make it that. But this list being put out as top 25 with some sort of merit behind it is laughable at the very least. Mike Gundy is one of the top coaches in college football. And I do think that even for some of the Gundy haters, like I have been several times, at the end of the day, regardless of why Mike Gundy fired everybody, whether it was the Board of Regents or Strum or Weiberg or whoever coerced him to make sure this move was a necessity for the success of Oklahoma State football, he did it. Okay? Maybe he was, led in that direction. Maybe he had to be guided down that path, but it happened. And now you have a head coach of the defense in Todd Grantham. You have his old buddy that was here for the beginning of the resurgence of really putting Oklahoma State football on the map in Doug Meacham. And he's not a top 25 coach yet. Kurt Cignetti is, and Mario Cristobal is. And Kyle Whittingham is still up here. Sharon Moore hasn't done anything. Brett Bielema is solid. Lincoln Riley hasn't done anything recently. Neither is Brett Venables hasn't done anything, period, yet. And I'm not hating on OU. As a program, that's a different conversation. Program, all-time, top 5, easily, right? You could have that debate with OU fans. But find me some OU fans that firmly believe that Brett Venables is one of the top 25 best coaches in college football. Because I would imagine there's not a whole lot of them out there. Yet, this dude, Mylanta. Like I said, higher than a giraffe's ass crack. That's what this list is. It's insanity. But it's okay. Just like we could find a way to dial up some insanity as the Cowboys take on the Houston Cougs, number 5 in the country, down in Texas. Could it be the Cowboys get back-to-back Big 12 W's in the sport of basketball? Extremely unlikely, because we are headed down to Houston to take on the number 5 in the country Cougars. But if you're looking for a feather in the cap of, so you're saying there's a chance, we began Big 12 play with Houston and Galgraba, and we played them very, very close to the end. Since then, it's been a nosedive in the losses department. Either we lose by 15, 25 points, or we win, right? That's basically how it's been, other than Houston. So if you're looking at something throughout the course of the season that has been some semblance of a guiding light, it was the fact that we were able to hang with Houston as long as we were in that game to begin Big 12 play. And since then, it's not like there's any disillusionment that Houston, maybe wasn't all that great, and that's why Oklahoma State was able to stay close. No, they're still Houston. They're still great. They're still number 5 in America for a reason. This should be a game where Houston kind of runs away with it. But in the Big 12, we have seen time and time again what we thought was going to be just a football ordeal is turning out to be synonymous with almost all sports all across the conference. Men's basketball is pretty crazy at the battle for the top. Women's basketball, thankfully the Cowboys or the Cowgirls are a part of that craziness, but it is also a log jam at the top of the Big 12. I was just looking earlier at the top, or 11 teams in the Big 12 have a 14-9 or better record. Something pretty comparable to that. So there's only really like 4 or 5 guaranteed wins in the Big 12 for women's basketball. Men's basketball has proven to be not equally as difficult, but pretty daggone close. This would be the biggest win of the year by far. One thing I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't say before I let you skedaddle on off of here is, thus far, Steve Lutz has improved off of the Mike Boynton-led basketball team from this previous few seasons. Now, I know that the games we lose by so many that it's very disparaging to be in Oklahoma State conversations when it pertains to basketball. I get that. Because Mike Boynton, he lost a lot, but getting beat by 20, 25, 30 points wasn't something that did happen a lot. We found a way to lose close games, which is what almost was more infuriating under Mike Boynton, because obviously we had the talent, we had the recruiting, we had the acumen behind us, and we had the historical Gallagher arena, yet we would lose so many close games. This year, at least when we lose, we're getting blown out by so much that if you're not willing to stick through to the very end, it does make life a little easier to do some channel surfing. And tonight likely is much of the same, because this Houston team can shoot, they can rebound, they can hit free throws, they can get up and down the court and fast pace, they can settle down and play half court, they can go full court press when need be, they can go to the bench. So they just have a lot more versatility almost all the way across the board. What Oklahoma State is, and this is an original thought, I saw this on social media the other day, so if you see this, shout out to you. But somebody had said on X that Steve Lutz didn't really have a lot of time to assemble a full-on basketball team. So what he did was he just got a bunch of athletes that could probably be good at defense. There wasn't a sharpshooter in the bunch. We weren't trying to go, find a pinpoint sharpshooter. I will think that this next go-around, this next season with Steve Lutz will look significantly different, because he's going to have the full time frame to recruit high school guys and transfer players alike. But I feel like we're better than we were under Boynton, although sometimes it doesn't look like it because our losses are so horrendous that those are times where people can, kind of poke fun and say, well, maybe we missed Boynton, or at least Boynton didn't get beat by 30. Yeah, maybe. But Steve Lutz is already winning more in Galgraba than Boynton did. The overall record is already looking better than the Mike Boynton records without Cade Cunningham and without having the ability to go to the NCAA tournament. So I'm not sitting here saying that Mike Boynton necessarily had it easy, but For all of the downtrodden fans out there, would try to remind you to go back and look at how many infuriating ways that we lost under Mike Boynton when the game was tied in the final minute. This is different, all right? We're not really making it very close here at the end of most of these losses, but we did against Houston. We made them fight for it. We looked like a fairly competent basketball team that was more than just athletes out there playing defense, but that's essentially what we are. Just a bunch of athletic dudes that are willing to, hustle and play some defense and try to muddy the waters of the game a little bit. And if you do that enough, then you're going to find yourself with some success. We climbed from 15th in the Big 12 in men's basketball to like 12th. So the climb is happening. Now, if we get this W, this would be kind of, I think, one of the galvanizing moments for Oklahoma State basketball moving forward. This would be something you could potentially hang your hat on in recruiting if you're Steve Lutz and you're trying to entice people to bring Galgaraba Arena in basketball back to how it used to be. Bringing the rowdy back. We've been able to do it with wrestling. And women's basketball, I feel like the fans have done a pretty good job getting behind them. I know it was a couple games ago, we had the most students in the student section in quite some time. So we're doing some things. And thankfully, we got baseball and softball about to kick off, both of which top 25, top 5 preseason polls, number 1 in the Big 12 for both men's baseball and women's softball. So those should kind of carry some weight. Men's track, cross country, they're doing some major things. The women's, I think, definitely have some capabilities to make some noise as well. So it could be a fun year. Tennis, could this be another opportunity for them to compete for a national championship? If they don't have another massive injury, then perhaps bringing home national title number 54 is viable this season. But until the next one, which I promise you, all of the regulators out here that stayed around to the end, we're going to have a very, very big guest up next, so make sure that you tune in tomorrow. Otherwise, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen. You're locked on Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Like it if you like the video. Dislike if you don't. That's okay, too. More importantly, my podcast of people out there, you are the thing that makes this chicken wing go. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you. Help me out. Do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave a review. All righty, y'all. Later, taters.